Can You Ever Forgive Me is a 2018 biopic directed by Mariel Heller and is starring Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. The film follows the life of Lee Israel, who is played by Melissa McCarthy, and she is a writer. She's a not particularly likable person. Her agent has issues with her attitude and the way she deals with people and the lack of interest she has in other people too. She's also a bit of a shithead. She doesn't really treat people very nicely. She prefers her cat to literally anyone else, basically. And the film essentially follows the struggles of her as a writer, how she doesn't really have the ideas that are going to really sell particularly very well, despite the fact that she is like a bestseller. Like, she has in the past made books that sold huge copies, were critically acclaimed. She's basically one of those people that is just so past their peak and is struggling to keep up with the times type thing. And overall, I think this was pretty good. I like this more than I expected. I went into this having little to no expectations. I didn't really have any interest in this. I didn't know too much about the story, but I just thought it was going to be one of those films where like a comedian type actor tries making their way into something more serious, and it ends up being like, oh, they did a good job because they jumped into a serious role, and usually they do ha 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 jokes, and they're usually silly, and they fall over, and ha 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 ha, Melissa McCarthy shitting in a sink, ha 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 ha. But actually, she came into the role quite well. She was definitely she definitely did a good performance in this film. Richard E. Grant was pretty funny in his role too. I enjoyed his performance quite a bit, probably a little bit more than Melissa McCarthy, but I would say both did an equally good job of what they were doing. All the other side characters throughout the film were kind of whatever. They just did whatever they had to do. There wasn't really anything special about the directing. A few times throughout the film, I did find it a bit bland to watch. Some of the editing cuts kind of jumped around a little bit. Not jumped around a little bit, but like sometimes like it would cut really quickly into someone's face, and I was just a bit like, oh, okay. Like the color scheme was really dead throughout the film. It wasn't a particularly nice film to watch, but I think that did match the sort of lifestyle that she lived, you know, the horrible apartment that she lived in, the kind of like dirty attitude she had, the sort of negative aura that surrounded her. It all made sense to fit into the type of character and the type of film that it was. And you know what, watching the film go the way it did, finding out about how she carried on, you know, forging letters and stuff like that, it was quite interesting to watch. I didn't particularly have any issues with the soundtrack. I like the songs that we used throughout the film, like the Pixie song and the Paul Simon song, but they just felt very out of place. Like they were just there for no reason. That was a pretty poor addition, but it didn't drag away from the film or anything. I'm not going to be like, oh, the score and the soundtrack pulled everything away from this film, because it didn't really. It was just like a bit of a minor weird thing that I noticed throughout the film, but other than that, I think it was pretty decent. The film was pretty decent. Definitely could have done a better job with the songs that we used throughout the film, but the film overall, I quite liked it. I have seen so many weak biopics in recent times. I'm getting bored of biopics, honestly. They're just getting really, really dull. But for what it is, this was solid. I enjoyed it. Interesting story. And yeah, 6 out of 10. It wasn't anything too special, but I think the thing about this film, that it was very clear that it was more of a story-driven film, and there wasn't really anything else that they could have done to change that, and it was fine for what it is. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen this film. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what films I should talk about in the future. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye. Goodbye.